A lot of people confuse age with authority, but in business, there's no seniority badge. You don't get to stay on top because you've been around. You stay on top because you adapt. The market doesn't care if you built your company with blood, sweat, and tears back in the 80s. If what you're doing today doesn't connect, doesn't convert, doesn't compete, you're just a memory in motion. And let's be real, you can't hustle on memory lane. That street has no exits, no growth, no fresh wins. It's just nostalgia, and nostalgia don't pay the bills. You might have knowledge, you might have stories, and you might have weathered more storms than most people will ever see. But here's the truth, if you're not evolving, you're evaporating. You either shift gears or you stall out. The pace of the world is increasing, not slowing down for anyone. New tools, new platforms, new strategies. This is not a season for comfort, it's a season for action. Don't let your wisdom turn into rust. Sharpen it. Use it. Mix it with fresh thinking, and move like someone who still belongs in the room. Because you do, if you're still growing. Now here's where many start to struggle. You've got decades of experience, but you're not applying it to today's world. You've got lessons that could change lives, but they're stuck in your head, locked behind your pride, or buried under fear. That's wasted power. Your experience is useless if it ain't applied. If you're not turning your past into present strategies, you're robbing the next version of your success. You've already paid the price to learn. Don't let the lesson die inside you. Teach it, show it, build with it. Otherwise, your greatest asset becomes your greatest excuse. The grind don't care how old you are, it just cares about value. That's the only thing the world respects now, results. You could be 70 with fresh ideas and digital presence, and you'll win. Or you could be 40 stuck in your ways, and you'll lose. It's not about your age, it's about your impact. And impact is measured in usefulness, not years. You want to stay in the game? Then bring something to the field that makes people stop and listen. Don't rely on who you were. Show them who you still are. And finally, let's talk about legacy. That word gets thrown around like it's only for the elderly. But legacy isn't just what you leave behind when you're gone. Legacy is built while you're still alive. It's built in every moment you show up with purpose, every time you pass on something valuable, every decision you make that shapes someone else's growth. And here's the part most miss: you don't build legacy by standing still. You build it by moving forward. People don't remember what you used to do. They remember what you're still doing. And if your business is shrinking, if your presence is fading, if your name is losing weight, it's not because of your age. It's because your motion slowed down. So here's the truth: raw and unfiltered age isn't your downfall. Stagnation is. You can be powerful, influential, relevant, respected, and profitable at any stage of life. If you keep growing, keep adjusting, and keep showing up. Don't settle into silence. Don't back into a corner thinking your best years are behind you. The world is still wide open for you, if you're bold enough to meet it where it is. You don't lose in business because you got older. You lose because you got comfortable. Somewhere along the line, success turned into stillness. And that stillness, that's what's shrinking your business, not your age. You used to move with urgency, build with intention, show up early, stay late, and learn while you earned. Now you're relying on the echo of old winds to carry you through new seasons, and the truth is, the echo is fading. Nobody's buying what you used to do. They want to know what you're doing now. Your years in the game give you an advantage only if you're still playing. But some of you put your hustle in cruise control and called it wisdom. That's not wisdom, that's withdrawal. And when you pull back, the world keeps spinning without you. New tools, new platforms, new ways of thinking take over. And if you're not adjusting, you're aging out, not because you're irrelevant, but because you refuse to stay relevant. You've got knowledge, but no movement. Vision, but no execution. And business don't pay for potential, it pays for proof. You've seen storms, you've handled pressure, you've built from nothing and bounced back from worse. So why are you moving like your best work is behind you? There's a difference between being seasoned and being stuck. Just because you know more doesn't mean you're doing more. Some of the most dangerous people in any industry are the ones who've lived through decades and still show up with fresh fire. They don't let age define their speed, they let purpose define their pace. That's the key. You stop growing, you stop earning. And that's the silent decline most people never notice until it's too late. There's a myth that older entrepreneurs should pass the torch. No, don't pass the torch. Use it to light more fires. You've got wisdom that could save people years of failure. You've got strategies that still work if you pair them with modern tools. You're not done. You're needed, but only if you're active. You can't lead from behind the scenes anymore. The audience has changed. The language has changed. The platforms have changed. If you're not showing up where the people are, then they assume you're no longer in the game. Visibility isn't vanity. It's necessity. You have to be seen to be believed. Stop letting your pride block your progress. Some of you are scared to start over, scared to look like a beginner again. But you forget, you've already done the hardest part. You built something out of nothing. So learning a new platform, trying a new model, adjusting your brand, that's light work compared to what you've already survived. Don't let fear of the unfamiliar rob you of the future you're still capable of creating. Starting fresh doesn't mean starting from scratch. You've got tools. Use them. And here's what it all comes down to. Legacy is not built on memories. It's built on momentum. You don't leave a mark by sitting still. You leave it by staying sharp, staying active, and staying hungry. Don't just talk about what you used to do. Let people witness what you're still doing. Every day you show up with purpose. Every time you stretch your skill set. Every decision to move instead of stall. That's legacy. That's impact. Your business doesn't have to shrink with age. But your mindset, that's what decides everything. Shift it, and everything else follows. Keep growing, and you don't just stay in the game. You change it. She ain't famous, ain't viral, but her truth hit harder than headlines. I met a 72-year-old woman sitting on a porch with eyes that seen storms and survived them all. What she told me changed how I see love, power, and pain. Let me give you her wisdom, straight, raw, and respectful. Here are 6 truths many women don't know but should. She leaned back in her chair like a queen without a throne, but you could feel the crown in her presence. Said she was 72, but the way her words moved, you knew her soul had lived 1,000 lives. No filter, no fluff, just straight wisdom like old oak roots. Deep, raw, and unshakable. We were talking about life, but it slipped into love, slipped into pain, slipped into survival like life always does. And somewhere in that soft, tired voice, she said something that hit me like a thunderclap in silent sea. Love ain't supposed to hurt more than it heals. She didn't say it to be poetic. She said it like a woman who survived it. Like somebody who used to lay awake listening to the sound of keys in the door, heart racing, not from excitement, but fear. Like someone knew how it felt to love so hard she forgot she deserved love back. She said she used to wait by the phone, wait for apologies, wait for changes that never came. She was taught that love was sacrifice. So she kept sacrificing over and over until there was almost nothing left of her. That kind of love, the kind that robs you slowly, it ain't love, it's a prison wrapped in red flags and sweet talk. She said, don't let loneliness trick you into thinking pain is passion. Too many women confuse effort with worth. They think if they just give a little more, wait a little longer, hold on a little tighter, he'll change. But baby, love that has to be begged for ain't worth having. She told me how she spent years shrinking herself, dimming her light so some man could feel like a son, being quiet when she wanted to scream, holding homes together with cracked hands and dry eyes. You see, there's a lie this world tells women, that your strength is proven by how much you endure. But strength isn't how much pain you can swallow. It's knowing when to spit it out and walk away. That's the thing most women don't know. Real love, don't make you question your sanity. It don't gaslight you into silence. Don't break you down just to say, I love you, after. That's emotional whiplash, not romance. That's control, not commitment. She said she used to think a man who came back after every storm was loyal. But now she knows. A man who causes the storm and brings the umbrella ain't a hero. He's just making sure you never leave the rain. I asked her when it changed, when she finally stopped the cycle. She smiled like she'd seen the devil and made peace with him. Said one day she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. I missed me, she whispered. So I went and got me back. That was the day she stopped chasing apologies and started accepting closure with silence. That was the day she realized being alone wasn't the worst thing. Being unloved while with someone was. Now she loves herself out loud, buys herself flowers, talks to herself sweet. It fills up her own cup. And when it overflows, she shares it with people who how to pour back. That's the kind of love she honors now, mutual, soft, and safe. Not perfect, not flashy, but peaceful. She said, if it don't heal you, it ain't holy. And I think every woman alive should carry that in her heart. Because the most dangerous thing ain't being broken. It's staying broken for someone who ain't even whole themselves. Love is supposed to build you, bless you, bring you home to yourself like it was the last truth she'd ever get to speak. No microphone, no spotlight, just a quiet chair on a front porch and a lifetime behind her eyes. She said, stop auditioning for people who ain't casting. At first, I didn't even know what she meant. But the way she looked at me, I knew she wasn't just talking about men. She was talking about how women twist themselves into knots trying to be enough for people who don't even know how to value gold when they see it. She said she spent her 20s trying to be the perfect girl, polite, soft, understanding, even when she was hurt, even when she was overlooked. She told me how she learned to smile through betrayal, to clean up messes she didn't make, to speak less so someone else could feel big. She said, I kept giving auditions, hoping someone would finally pick me. But baby, I was already the whole show. But so many women think their worth is tied to someone else's opinion. They stay in rooms where no one claps, hoping if they dance hard enough, someone will notice. They wait for approval, wait to be told they're beautiful, smart, good enough. But that kind of waiting is slow death. That's how you forget who you were before the world started convincing you that you were too much, too loud, too ambitious, too bold. She looked at me real serious and said, you got to stop begging people to love you right. If they don't see you, stop standing in their line of sight. You see, love that has to be begged for will never feel like love. You'll always be chasing, always be proving, always be doubting. And every time you do that, you hand over pieces of yourself that you might never get. That woman, 72 years old, more life behind her than ahead, said she wasted too many years showing up for people who couldn't even spell loyalty. She played therapist, mother, savior, lover, everything but herself. Because when you don't know your worth, you try to earn it through service, through sacrifice, through silence. And when the love you want don't come, you don't blame them. But the truth is, it's not your job to convince somebody to see your value. Your job is to know your value so deeply and so boldly that you stop shrinking for anyone. Your job is to stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, fully, unapologetically. She told me the moment everything changed. It wasn't dramatic. No big betrayal. No heartbreak. Just one quiet morning where she looked in the mirror and said, I don't recognize this woman. She'd become a reflection of everyone else's needs. She'd shaped herself so many times she didn't even know what shape she really was anymore. And right then she decided she'd stop auditioning. No more performances, no more shrinking, no more waiting. She started saying no. She stopped explaining herself. She let people be mad. Let them walk away, because she realized she'd rather stand alone in truth than be surrounded in lies. And what happened? She got peace. Not fireworks, not fairy tales. Peace. She started attracting people who valued her without discounts. Opportunities came. Joy came. She found herself again. And now, she looks back and says, if I knew then what I know now, I walked away the first time I felt small. So I'm telling you now, stop waiting, stop performing. You are not a product on a shelf waiting to be picked. You are the prize. And once you believe that, everything changes. She was sitting under a sky heavy with memory, the kind of woman whose wrinkles tell more truth than a preacher on Sunday. She didn't speak often, but when she did, it felt like scripture. She leaned in and said, the strongest women still get tired. That don't make you weak? I felt that in my chest, like she gave me permission to exhale for the first time in years. Too many women out here walking around with invisible weights on their shoulders, smiling like it don't hurt, performing like strength means silence. She told me about the years she carried everyone, children, husbands, siblings, even people who only called when they needed something. She said she used to wear strong, like armor, but it became a cage. See, the world will cheer for your strength as long as you don't show your wounds. You're allowed to survive, but not to struggle. That's the trap. We think strength is never crying, never breaking, always enduring. When in truth, real strength is knowing when to rest, knowing when to ask for help, knowing when to put the load down and say, this ain't mine to carry anymore. She said, don't let people confuse your silence for strength. If the silence is killing you inside, there's bravery in breaking. There's courage in saying, I'm not okay. Because when you keep wearing that mask for too long, you forget how to take it off. You become so used to surviving, you forget what it feels like to live. And life isn't just about making it through. It's about being whole while you're here. She told me about the night she finally collapsed. Quiet in her own bathroom, away from everybody. She said it was the best thing that ever happened to her, because that night she stopped pretending. She called her sister. She cried. She finally let someone see her cracked, and the world didn't end. That was the day she learned strength ain't about how much pain you can bury. It's about how much truth you can carry. Then she looked at me like she was handing down fire and said something else. See, silence is not submission. Sometimes it's strategy. I didn't get it at first, but then she explained. She said in her younger days, she used to argue with everybody, always defending herself, explaining her choices, proving her worth, until she realized that not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone's opinion is worth your energy. She said, some people only argue to win, not to understand. Some people want your reaction just so they feel power. So she learned to master silence, not out of fear, but out of peace. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is walk away, them talk, let them gossip, let them misunderstand you. Their noise ain't your business. Your peace is. She told me about how she started choosing silence like a weapon, not to hide, but to protect her spirit, not to submit, but to separate herself from foolishness. She said, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Some things are beneath your dignity. And when she started doing that, the quality of her life rose like sunlight. She didn't stop there. She dropped one more jewel with a little smile, like she knew it might sting. Love ain't supposed to hurt more than it heals. She said it plain, without apology. Too many women call it love when it's really just survival in disguise, chasing men who break them, just to be told later it was their fault, letting history keep them loyal to pain. She said, if it hurts more often than it heals, that ain't love, that's a wound you keep calling home. She learned the difference the hard way, said she thought love was sacrifice, but real love doesn't require you to bleed every day to prove it. Real love feels like safety, like quiet mornings, like knowing you're enough even on your worst days. She didn't find it in fairy tales. She found it in herself first. And now she carries peace like perfume. She walks light, talks deeply, but never at her own expense. Because now she knows she is the love she was waiting for all along. She looked me in the eye with that calm only time can teach and said, your beauty is the least interesting thing about you. And in that one sentence, she burned down everything the world ever told a woman. She said when she was younger, beauty was everything. It opened doors, turned heads, earned compliments from people who didn't care about her name, her mind, her dreams, just her shape. She learned early that attention wasn't the same as love, and praise wasn't the same as value. She told me, pretty fades, but wisdom, that shines forever. And she meant it. She said too many women build confidence like a sandcastle, right at the shore where every wave of insecurity can knock it down. One wrinkle, 1 pound, one comparison to someone else, and suddenly they forget who they are. But real confidence, that's built in the deep, in the soul, in the character, in how you treat people and how you treat yourself. She said, if the only thing they see is your body, they're looking too low. Make them look up to your spirit, your voice, your mind. She said once you realize beauty isn't your power, but your presence is, the whole game changes. You stop chasing the mirror and start building the woman. You stop asking, do I look good enough? And start asking, do I feel whole enough? Because one day, life's going to test you in ways your looks can't help you. And in that moment, you'll need more than mascara and heels. You'll need faith. You'll need self-respect that don't shake when the crowd gets quiet. Then she leaned in and dropped another one on me. Stop waiting to be chosen. Choose yourself. She said she spent too many years in waiting rooms, waiting to be called, waiting to be loved, waiting to be seen. And one day she just got tired. Tired of holding her breath, hoping someone would notice her worth. Tired of living small so someone else could feel big. Tired of playing polite while her soul screamed. So she stopped waiting. She chose herself, bought her own flowers, took herself to dinner, spoke up for herself even when her voice trembled. She said the world taught her to chase approval like oxygen, but she finally learned how to breathe on her own. And it changed everything, she said. When you choose yourself, the right people start showing up. The ones who see your light, not just your usefulness. She told me choosing yourself doesn't mean being selfish. It means you stop asking for permission to matter. It means you stop making yourself small for people who can't handle your shine. It means you look in the mirror and say, I deserve good things. Not someday, but now. She paused for a second like she was letting her past catch up with her, then said something soft but sharp. I used to mistake loyalty for love, but loyalty to pain is still pain. She said women stay in places they've outgrown because of history, because of promises, because they're afraid of starting over. But she said staying somewhere that steals your peace isn't strength, it's self-abandonment. She said the moment she realized she was allowed to leave a relationship, a job, a version of herself, she felt free for the first time. She said, you don't owe anyone your suffering. You only owe yourself your truth. And the truth was, she deserved more. Not because she was perfect, but because she was enough. Always had been, just took her a few decades to see it. Now she walks different. Not arrogant, just grounded. Not loud, just clear. Because once you've lived long enough to see your worth and choose yourself fully, you never settle again. Not for love, not for praise, not for anything less than peace. She sat there with her hands folded like pages of a worn book, not fragile but full of chapters. And with a voice smooth like river stones, she said, I spent most of my life giving people the best parts of me and keeping the scraps for myself. There was no bitterness in her voice, just clarity. She said, many women confuse being needed with being loved, and that confusion cost me more than any heartbreak. She spoke about the years she poured into others, cooked when she was exhausted, showed up when no one ever did for her, stayed loyal long after respect had left the room, not because she didn't love herself, but because she thought that's what love was supposed to be. Endless sacrifice. I didn't even know I was disappearing, she said, until there was nothing left of me but service. Hey, she learned the hard way that love that only works when you're exhausted ain't loved. That people who only come around when you're useful are just opportunists with good timing. She said real love shows up when you have nothing to offer but your truth. It doesn't run when you stop saying yes. It doesn't get quiet when you ask for something back. Then she told me something that hit deep. You teach people how to love you by how you love yourself. And when you always put yourself last, they'll believe you belong there. But when you start standing up for your time, your energy, your peace, the right ones will adjust, the wrong ones will exit. And that's a blessing too. She took a breath like she was letting go of decades, and then said, sometimes the apology you need will never come. You have to heal anyway. That's when I saw it. Her power. Not in revenge, not in anger, but in release. She carried no grudges, only lessons. She said too many women wait for closure like it's a gift someone else holds. But the truth is, healing isn't owed. It's chosen. And sometimes, choosing to move on is the only apology your soul will ever get. She said she used to sit up at night, rehearsing speeches in her head. All the things she'd say to the ones who hurt her if she ever got the chance. Until one night, she just stopped. Stopped trying to make people understand who were committed to misunderstanding her. Stopped waiting to be heard by people who only listened to themselves. She said, peace came when I realized I didn't need them to feel sorry. I just needed to feel free. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was finally behind her. I buried too many versions of myself trying to be palatable, she said. Now I don't sugarcoat my soul for nobody. She told me about her mirror moment. One morning, brushing her hair, she looked herself dead in the eye and said, you're not hard to love. You were just loving people who didn't know how. That changed everything. She started walking into rooms like she belonged because she finally believed she did. She stopped explaining herself to people who only wanted to debate her value. She started living like she was her own home. And baby, she redecorated. No more shrinking. No more waiting. No more apologizing for taking up space, she said. I stopped asking for less, started expecting more. And guess what? She's 72, but her spirit's young because she's not tired from carrying everyone anymore. She's alive from finally carrying herself, she said. My only regret, I wish I learned this sooner. But even then, she smiled. Because learning late is still learning, and she swore on everything holy, it's never too late to return to yourself. She sat across from me, a lifetime etched into her eyes, the kind of eyes that have seen storms and sunshine in the same breath. She said something that caught me off guard, clear and steady. Honey, the world don't owe you understanding, but you owe yourself patience. And in that simple truth was the kind of wisdom only time can teach. She told me how she spent decades chasing answers from people who never gave them, searching for validation in places that never held space for her. It was exhausting, she said, like running uphill in quicksand, always moving, but never getting anywhere. She told me that one of the hardest lessons she learned was how to be gentle with herself when nobody else was. I used to beat myself up for not being enough. Not pretty enough, not strong enough, she said. But over time, she realized the fight wasn't with herself at all. The fight was against the lies she'd been told, the expectations she tried to meet, and the silence she kept when her heart begged to speak. Your soul needs kindness, even when the world gives you none, she reminded me. That kindness, the one you give yourself in the quiet moments, is the foundation of everything. She talked about the trap of comparison, how it creeps in like a thief in the night, stealing joy and planting doubt. She said, I watched young women with their perfect lives on display and thought I'd missed the mark somewhere. But what she discovered, finally, was that comparison is a liar's game. You can't measure your worth against someone else's highlight reel. Your story is yours alone. No one else can live it or tell it better, she said. When she stopped trying to keep up with others, she started keeping peace with herself. One of the sharpest she shared was about forgiveness, not just of others, but of yourself. I held on to regrets like chains, she admitted. I carried the weight of what I should have said, should have done, should have walked away from. But forgiveness, she said, is freedom's first step. It's not about forgetting or excusing pain. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of what ifs and could have beens. She urged me to practice the forgiveness every day, especially when the wounds felt too deep to heal. She also spoke about boundaries, how she once thought setting them meant being selfish or cold. But with age, she learned boundaries are acts of love for yourself and others. I had to stop saying yes to everyone and everything, she explained. Saying no became a way to say yes to my peace. When she respected her limits, she attracted people who respected them too. It was a quiet revolution in her life, turning chaos into calm. Finally, she talked about hope, not the kind that waits passively, but the fierce kind that fights quietly inside you. Even when the night was darkest, I held on to the belief that morning was coming, she said. She encouraged me to nurture that hope, to tend to it like a precious flame, because no matter how many times life knocks you down, hope is the hand that helps you rise again. In her 72 years, she'd learned that the most powerful love you'll ever know is the love you give yourself. It's not always loud or flashy, but it's steady and sure. She said, when you know your worth and guard it fiercely, the world has no choice but to bow. And that, she said with a smile that held 1,000 suns, is the kind of wisdom every woman deserves to carry. A Kawasanji that 72-year-old queen ain't write a book, but her life is a book, one too many women still live in. Don't wait till you gray and heavy to start listening. The truth already knocked. You just gotta open the door. Stay wise, stay watching, stay you. And don't forget it, diamonds don't beg to be seen, they just shine. Would you like this adapted for video narration or Instagram caption format too?